So I've been playing Outriders. It is available on Game Pass if you have Game Pass, and if you don't have Game Pass, you should get Game Pass because it's insane, and the price is going to go up soon because there's just so much. And my first impressions of Outriders are honestly that it's pretty solid. It's pretty good. It almost reminds me of Gears of War mixed with, I don't know, it's like a hybridization of a lot of things. And I've heard this comparison a lot in what I've looked at about Outriders, but it's like Gears of War and Borderlands put together. And then I almost kind of get some Dead Island vibes, just kind of from the way the dialogue is spoken and kind of the cutscenes and, I don't know, the animations almost. I'm using it on an Xbox One X, and I've noticed that the load times are relatively long, which is understandable, I suppose. I believe it's optimized for the Xbox Series X, which I've been trying to get, have not been able to get. I've been trying desperately. My girlfriend and I both have been looking, but I digress. It's running on the Xbox One X, pretty long load times. It'll take a good, and it tells you the percentage the map is loaded, so we're looking at a minute, I want to say, up to 90 seconds for those loading screens, which aren't too bad. And it is worth noting that the first 5 hours of me honestly trying to play this game, I probably only got 60 minutes of playtime because I had incessant crashing. The first day I tried to play this game, and it almost completely deterred me from going back to it at all, was the amount of crashes I had. Every time I loaded in, crash. Every time I hit a new point in the story, crash. I couldn't even get through the prologue. If I tried to read something in the journal, crash. Disconnecting from the servers being down. And what really pisses me off is I'm playing here in single player and they're having server issues. From my point of view, that should not affect me. I should be able to just hop in and play offline, but we're kind of in that always online time, I guess. So I've seen some criticism of the voice acting, of it being, I don't know, bad, cheesy, and I think it's all pretty valid. The voice acting is definitely relatively laughable. Like, there are some good moments. Like, there was actually a couple of solid line deliveries, but for the most part, the voice acting is fucking hilarious, and the writing's a little blocky, so you kind of don't feel like you're in reality. Like, it's honestly a really alluring story. It's really cool lore, and it's pretty dark overall so far, but the writing is hilarious, and I don't know if it's always on purpose. So, there's a side quest and something happens, and this guy shoots another guy, and the main character goes, "Hey, you interrupted my line." And it's just like, that's not something people say. Or he walks up to this shack, and he goes, "Oh, no way. Beastie Boys on vinyl?" And it's just like, it's funny. There's a lot of little Easter eggs like that. But then there is some genuinely funny writing. Like, I'd say there's a lot of irony. Like somebody kind of making a point, acting like they're badass, and then immediately getting killed off when you don't expect them to because they've been made to seem very important. Stuff like that catches you off guard. That's pretty nice. Gameplay-wise, it's very similar to Gears of War in terms of the cover system, aiming above the cover, being able to blind fire, different enemy types, kind of the tanky, the rushing, the melee, the long range. The enemies tend to come in waves. You clear one area, move to the next, clear the area, move to the next, clear the area, move to the next, and then usually there's a boss fight at the end. But it almost has a Borderlands-like looting system and weapon modding system where you could have bullets that catch people on fire, or bleeding damage, or life steal. Stuff like that that's really interesting, kind of diversifies the gameplay. I've heard some criticisms that the game is really cover heavy, cover and pick off enemies, cover, pick off enemies, and cower. So specifically to combat that, because I read that going in, I chose, I believe it's the Devastator class. So you get a health bonus if you kill enemies that are close to you. So now I'm kind of specializing in shotguns, so I tend to just rush around, shotgun an enemy in the face. It takes 1 or 2 shots, and a quarter of my health bar goes up. So as long as I keep a good kill chain and I'm always in the enemy's face, I'm basically constantly healing. So there's been a few perks so far. I'm pretty early in the skill tree, but there's been a few perks to diversify into increasing shotgun damage, increasing weapon damage. I look down the tree, there's some that are going to increase the amount of health you heal per kill. So there is a good amount of character specialization. And I've also heard that it is better to play in multiplayer because you kind of specialize your character. So if you have a more diverse team of individuals with different skill sets, you'll be more, let's say, suited to, handle a situation that has arisen, which I can understand because for me, I don't really have any passive healing. I need to kill somebody to heal. So if I'm kind of getting pinned down and getting heavy fire on my abilities or on cooldown, and I have to reload both my weapons and I have pretty low health, I don't know, I've found myself panicked. I haven't really died yet at all, but I've been pretty low and it gets pretty stressful. So I can understand. I don't know if there are other people that can heal their teammates, but having somebody to draw some fire, it's been relatively tough in solo mode. So running this class for me has honestly helped me avoid these issues I've seen other people mention where it's very cover heavy, or I could really see that for somebody who specializes in like sniper rifle gameplay or anything like that, any kind of scout gameplay. It would seem pretty boring. So I specifically chose that class and it's been working out well for me so far. It's been pretty clean and tight for me gameplay wise. Gunplay feels good. The auto aim's a little funky and there's a good amount of screen shake in the cutscenes, but overall really fun. I will say the menus and the quest tracking and whatnot is semi-difficult to navigate, and I don't know whether to attribute that to me just having a smooth brain or just a touch of poor design on the developer's part. But I have found the menus a little bit tough to navigate. The quest tracking is a little confusing, but what I will say is the inventory section with your weapons and your armor has been pretty simple and intuitive and easy to navigate, and the crafting system seems to be relatively straightforward. It's almost a cyberpunk crafting system where you can upgrade your weapons just straight level, straight damage input with some slight modifications that don't affect gameplay too much, but it's really straightforward and it seems relatively easily accessible, at least here early on in the game. So yeah, it has pretty goofy voice acting, which honestly works in its favor. It almost seems like a cheesy B movie, but what I will say is the story has a lot of potential. It's very interesting lore. I like kind of the way the story is set up. I really like the way they have it in motion. I think it definitely could have been handled a little better. If it took itself more seriously, it could have been a really good game. If your character got a bit more backstory, I could take him, seriously. It kind of has that issues where season 1 of a show has those problems with their early characters where they try to have dramatic death. So I'm rewatching a show right now, in season 1 a character had a character that's special to them die off, but this character is introduced like 2 episodes prior, so you don't really develop a connection with them, and it doesn't really seem merited or earned, like what that puts the character through writing wise. So I have a lot of that here where people are old friends, but you didn't see the friendship grow. They don't really explain it. You have to read it in the journal to actually see that. They just have the occasional line where they're like, hey old friend. So the writing's lacking, and it definitely seems like it's not living up to its full potential story wise, even though the gameplay is good. And I think just how alluring the actual lore is, and I personally do enjoy reading logs and listening to logs that I find and reading the journal and reading the lore. So for me, it's interesting enough to kind of keep me in it just because I know what's going on, and I like the world and the setting that's happening. And luckily, it seems whatever issues I've had with crashing have resolved themselves, because I just had a really long, stable playthrough yesterday, and everything seemed to be smooth, and I didn't have any crashes or disconnections, which is nice. So I would say overall, I'm pretty happy with it. I like Gears of War. It scratches that itch. I really like Gears of War, actually. I'm gearing up to replay the whole series soon, and I think it's solid. It has an interesting story, interesting lore, fun gameplay, fun looting. It could just have a little bit of better writing, better voice acting, and it could be a touch more polished. Like, it feels a little bit shaky, a little bit low budget, and I'm also running it on a little bit of older hardware, but to be fair, it is the Xbox One X and not the day one 2013 Xbox, which I'm sure would be chugging along. It's definitely worth downloading if you have Game Pass, because then all you really need to do is sacrifice a little bit of hard drive space. If you don't have Game Pass, but you like Gears of War and you like Borderlands, I would say that it's probably worth a pickup if you think you're going to put 20-30 hours into it. Just breeze through the main story. I think I'm going to get pretty far into it. It seems like one of those games you put like 35 to 40 hours into over the course of a couple weeks, and then you just kind of look at it in your download list a few years down the line and go, yeah, that was a pretty good game. So yeah, I'm pretty impressed overall, and I would definitely say it's worth picking up if it sounds interesting to you.